Hey everybody, and welcome to Sensation of Perception. I will be your guide this semester, this very, very brief semester, and my name is Alex. You can call me Alex, you can call me Dr. Daniel, you can call me whatever you like. It doesn't matter to me as long as you're nice about it. So let's get into it. I prepared a quick video. I say quick, I suspect this will probably take about 25 minutes to cover. A quick video to kind of walk through what to expect this semester. So it's going to include a little bit about like what sensation perception is, but then talk about what the course is going to be like, what the assignments are going to be like, and so on. And then a quick preview for the first week of classes. So let's get right into it. Here is an example of an optical illusion, and if you are not detecting the optical illusion at the moment, then feel free to pause this video and just look at this image. Most of you will probably see is that it appears like it is waving. It appears like it is moving around. But the interesting thing is that if you stare at any single part, you'll notice that it doesn't move. It's only when your eyes are moving around this image that it seems like it's actually waving around. And throughout the semester, I've taught this class, I don't know, this is maybe my 7th year of teaching it. Usually there'll be a couple of skeptical folks in the audience, and they'll be like, that's a trick, or that's actually a video. That's not really just an image, it's a video, and that's why it looks like it's moving, because it actually is moving. No, you can pause this video and you can see, like, it can be a still image, and our brain perceives it as if it is moving around. Why is that? That's one of the things we'll be talking about this semester. So today what we're going to be looking at is a quick look at what some of the course topics are going to be. Then we'll talk about grading expectations, along with kind of a rundown of the assignments, and then a look at our first week of class. So let's talk about what's going to be going on in this course. I thought maybe one way to kind of grab you is to show you some optical illusions, just like we just saw, so we can kind of think about, how does that work? What kind of combination of your eyes and your brain, or your ears and your brain, or as we'll see in some other cases like our tongue and our brain, what kind of combination or interaction of those things allow us to perceive things that aren't actually there? Here's kind of a fun, really old school example. I don't even remember how I found this video, because it's like from this New Zealand guy, and basically I cut ahead, and all these links you can find on Plato. You can check out these links on your own time if you want to. But basically what he did here is he has a stripe of paper, he cut some holes in it, and then he colored the insides of it like red. So it's a flat piece of paper, but you can see it has the appearance of 3D because this part of it is red versus the white. So it looks like it has depth, but that's not all he's going to do.
Those sides there, making sure that it's exactly the same on each side. There we are. Now, whichever way you look at that, your brain will tell you that the long end is nearer to you. Now, it is nearer to you now, but now I'll put it back near my body. Now it's nearer to me, but it still looks as if it's nearer you, doesn't it? Because you're used to seeing things bigger when they are closer to you. Now, here's the spinning motor. It's simply a piece of cotton thread tied to this corner and tied to the other corner, and I've wound it around in my fingers so that when I let it go in a moment, it'll unwind, the thread will unwind, and you'll see the thing spinning. There we are. I'll hold it at the same level as your eyes, and we'll let it go. Now you know that it's turning around in circles. In fact, if you look at it from above, you can see that it's turning around in a circle. But now your brain is doing something strange. It's telling you that it's not going around in a circle, but it's oscillating. In other words, it's turning part way, stopping, and then going back the other way. Now that's a strange effect, isn't it? But if you think that's strange, wait till I add something through the middle. What am I going to add? Well, I'm going to add a ballpoint pen. And to do that, I've placed a little piece of double-sided sticky tape on the ballpoint pen. You can use ordinary sticky tape if you like. I'll place it right through the center of the window and press it in place like that. Now this time, by fixing on the pen, you'll be able to see that the pen is going around in a circle and not going backwards and forwards. But what's your brain going to tell you about the window? Will your brain allow you to see the window going around in a circle with the pen? Or are you going to see something really strange? Well, have a look at that. That's unbelievable, isn't it? You can see the pen going around in a circle, but your brain is telling you that the window is going part way around and turning and going the other way. And yet in order to do that, the two things have to pass through one another, the pen and the window. You know it's not possible. You know it can't happen. And yet as you look at it, you see them going through one another every time they go around. An amazing illusion. The aim.
Cool. All right. I only have a couple more videos for you like that, and the reason why I mention that is because I don't want to just record this and like just watch YouTube videos while you're watching. So there might be a couple of links where like I'll say like, hey, check out this link to see this video. And whenever I do that, I encourage you to maybe stop watching and then try it out on your own, because I think getting the most out of this class will be stopping to kind of check out these illusions and to check out these interesting kind of perceptual things. This class, especially compared to other psychology classes, really lends itself to that kind of experiential element where you're seeing and you're hearing the stimuli for yourself. So just reading the textbook is fine, but I feel like kind of seeing and hearing these things can be crucial, at least for me, for understanding these things. So just keep that in mind as we move forward. And I'll kind of mention that again in Chapter 1. So if you check that out, or if you thought about what we just saw, it was an optical illusion, right? Basically, our eyes sensed something that could not have happened, right? That the laws of physics show that it would be impossible for that pen to just kind of circle through that flat sheet of paper that is oscillating. When in fact, what it's actually doing is it's actually both the paper and the pencil are moving around at 360 degrees, but we don't perceive it that way. So why is that? We'll talk about that in Chapter 8. Here's another example of how color can give the impression of movement. What you're seeing here are these little stick figures that are changing color across the gradient, and they're not actually moving, even though it looks like that they are moving. And if you don't believe me, again, you can pause the video and you can kind of put your cursor right here, and you can see that it doesn't actually move. This guy doesn't actually move. And if I want to try this one up here, he's not actually moving either. We'll be talking about this, the blue and black dress. For a lot of you, I'm going to assume that y'all were like in middle school or even earlier. For a lot of you, when this meme first kind of circulated the internet, we'll talk more about it. But people perceive this as either blue and black or white and gold. And when people hear that, instantly they either see it as blue and black or they perceive it as white and gold. And if I tell you that I see it as blue and black, but what you are perceiving as white and gold, it's very hard to understand how I could possibly see that as what you see. Yeah, that's a fun one. We'll talk about that in Chapter 5. Here's another one very similar to the stick figures, where the shift of color gives this perceptual illusion that movement is occurring. So again, I'm going to put my cursor right here, and you can see that it doesn't actually move. You can put your finger over some points of that video, and you'll see that it doesn't move. So why is that? We'll talk about that in both Chapter 5 and in Chapter 8. Here's a sound example. So the Yanny versus Laurel debate, this was something that, again, this is in 2018, so this is several years ago by now, but is one of the best examples of this phenomenon that I've seen. So I'm going to try to play this for you now. Let's see if it actually works. And if you want to try this link out on your own, it is a paid link because it is New York Times, so just be careful about that. You can always open up incognito mode to access it without the paywall. So here we go.
Laurel, Laurel, Laurel.
So most of you are hearing either Laurel or Yanny.
Laurel, Laurel.
And again, if you're hearing Yanny, it's so hard to imagine somebody hearing Laurel. And if you're hearing Laurel, it's so hard to imagine someone saying Yanny. So I'm going to manipulate the sound wave so that what you hear is different.
Laurel, Laurel, Laurel.
So probably everybody is hearing laurel. Some of you may not. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you're weird if you're still hearing Yanny here, but the vast majority of you are going to be hearing laurel. Now, I'm going to be manipulating that sound wave until it's going to sound more like Yanny. So I just want you to kind of think cognitively like where that switch occurred for you. Here we go.
Laurel, 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 laurel,
I'm still hearing laurel.
laurel, laurel,
I'm hearing Yanny around here. I don't know about you.
laurel, Yanny, 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 Yanny.
All right, so that's an example of what we call categorical speech perception, something we'll be talking about in Chapter 11. But this is kind of one of the best examples of this. Like I was saying, I can't remember how somebody found it. I think that they were like they were looking at like some dictionary website and played the sound clip for the word laurel, and they misheard it as Yanny and posted it to the internet, and it quickly divided the world about whether or not they heard Yanny versus laurel. Okay, so here is an example of another color after effect illusion. So if you stare at this little circle, this little dot, this little black dot right there in the center of this flag, in just a moment what I'm going to do is I'm going to move away this slide so that you're only seeing a white background. So I'm going to take away this image, and hopefully you're still staring at that black dot. And what you will perceive is the American flag in its actual colors of red, white, and blue. So here we go. 3, 2, 1. Cool. And if you just stare at the screen, at the white screen, you should see a ghostly after effect of red, white, and blue. We'll talk about why that happens in Chapter 5. This is an example of the color after effect in motion. It's really, really cool. I'm going to save that actually for Chapter 5, so I'm going to come back to it later. And 1 sec. Okay, sorry, I paused it for a second. And if you rewind like 5 seconds, you might hear my spouse in the background holler my name because she forgot I was recording. All right, so this is the color after effect. I'm going to say that for Chapter 5. The motion after effect, I will show you this one. This will be the last one that I show you, this last video, because I think this is a super, super cool video. Here we go. Yeah, so basically it's going to play some trippy music, some psychedelic fun music for a second. It's going to feel like it takes a while, but as you can see, you're only going to be looking at the screen for a minute. Please be a little careful if you have any kind of history being photosensitive, like if you have epilepsy or anything like that. Just be careful. You're going to see some flashing lights here. Just take note of the center of the screen and focus on that. Don't pay attention to me on the top right hand corner. Really the key here is that you want your eye, you want your retina to just soak in this information passively. So it helps if you are staring at the screen without your eyes moving, without blinking as much as you can. Here we go. I'll do it along with you. Sensation of perception, Psych 359. When you awake from this hypnotic state, you will not remember. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to pass time. Alright, it's coming pretty soon. I'm gonna say like the next 10 seconds or so. Yeah, so if that worked, and again, this is one of those that like it doesn't really work very well if you are watching this video on your phone. It really helps to have this full screen on a TV or on a computer monitor. But for me, and it's still kind of doing it, the world feels like it's moving. It feels like things are kind of wishy and washy and waving back and forth in front of me, even though I know that the room around me is completely still. So that's the motion after effect. We'll talk about that in chapter 8. So we're going to be talking about our eyes and how we see things. We're going to be talking about our ears and how we hear things. We're going to be talking about our sense of balance and our sense of rotation, or what we call vestibulation. We're going to be talking about our sense of touch and pain. We're going to be talking about smell and olfaction, and we're going to be talking about taste and our tongue. So we're going to be talking about all these different interesting elements, like what is the difference between a touch like this versus if I did it a little bit harder, it'll start to hurt. So why is that different? It's the same stimulus being applied, but why is it that one version feels like a touch and the other one might feel harmful? We'll be talking about why we are able to smell things that smell familiar to us versus novel. And we'll be talking about why is it that when we put something in our mouth that we can detect if it's nutritious or not. We'll be talking about all these things over the course of our semester. So sometimes this class is going to feel like biology. Sometimes it's going to feel, actually a lot of the time it's going to feel like anatomy. We're going to be talking a lot about the anatomy of the human body. It's going to also feel like physics. So we're going to be talking about how these senses are able to travel from the stimulus to your eyes, your ears, your nose, and your tongue. We'll be talking about chemistry, especially when we talk about smell and taste. And we're going to be talking about philosophy a pretty good bit. We'll be talking about things, like one of the core concepts that we're going to be grappling with is how do I know that what I experience is the same thing that you experience? How do I know that whenever I see this color blue, that you perceive it as the same shade of blue or even the same color that I do? Maybe we both agree on whatever the colors that we see are what we call blue because we've known it as blue our whole life, but how do I know that you're seeing the exact same thing that I am? Once in a while, this class is going to feel like psychology, and whenever I took this class, whenever I was an undergrad, I certainly felt a little bit like, wait a second, this doesn't really feel like psychology, this feels like biology a little bit. That's fine. That's kind of how this class is. I'll never forget my undergraduate instructor. His name's Dr. Kent Bodley. He is awesome. Very influential on undergrad Professor Daniel. But I remember that he said, this is where the rubber hits the road in terms of biology and psychology. That this is where that switch happens, where we go from the physical objective world to the internal subjective world. This is where that transition occurs. It's really kind of the cutting edge of behavior, because this is where we talk about experiencing a stimulus so that we can react to it. And I know that sounds very technical, that sounds very complex, and it is, but I'm going to try to kind of, and that's kind of how I see this class, but I'm going to try to kind of take a step back every now and again and think about, like, well, what does this mean for you? Someone who probably doesn't want to go into research or doesn't really want to go into grad school too much maybe, but wants to work with people. You want to have clients, you want to be a counselor, you want to be a therapist of some sort. I'll try to think about, like how those examples apply to you and what you will experience after you graduate. Okay, so this is our textbook. So now that's what the course was about. Let's talk about kind of the the policies and such. So this is our textbook. It is the 6th edition. You may have gotten an email from me at the very beginning or right before the semester began talking about it. It is okay if you want to check out the 4th and 5th edition because those are much cheaper than the 6th edition. But beware, there might be a couple of images that I talk about or a couple of examples that are discussed in the book that aren't in your version if you're using those earlier ones. But honestly, I think that the biggest difference is, and I have read every single version since the 1st edition, which is weird to think about. So I've seen every single edition, and I think that there is a huge change between edition 1 and edition 2, and there's a big change from edition 3 to edition 4. And so as long as you're doing 4, 5, or 6, I think that you'll be okay, but I can't guarantee that because I'm working from the 6th edition. This book is awesome. It is written by some of the best scientists in the game. Jeremy Wolf, he is a really kind of like a leading researcher in visual attention. And pretty much everybody that you see here is kind of a leading figure in their field. So Jeremy Wolf, he does a lot of visual research. He writes the vision chapters. We got Linda Bartoshuk. Linda Bartoshuk is an awesome, probably the best taste researcher doing work. She's in, I think, University of Florida right now. And she wrote the taste chapter. So that's kind of how it works, that you bring in all these heavy hitters to come in and write about the chapters that they know best, which can be a little bit intimidating because for some people they feel like the book is a little bit technical. I agree that it is a little bit technical, but that's kind of what I hope to do in this class, is to kind of help translate some of this really technical jargon into something that you can understand and use whenever you graduate here. I'm not going to hide that this class is going to be a lot of work, especially for us in a summer semester. Because think about this. Our class is generally about 16 weeks throughout a normal semester. But we only really have about 5.5 weeks to do a summer session. So that means that we're kind of squeezing this class to be about 3 times the speed that it normally is. So normally when I teach this class, I teach 1 chapter a week. That means that we're basically going to be doing 3 chapters a week. So it's 3 times as fast as what we normally do. So that's a lot of work. But even I think whenever I'm doing this class in a normal speed in the fall and spring, I think even still is a lot of work. There are a lot of assignments because for every chapter I'm going to have a quiz and I'm going to have a discussion. And that is also on top of the exams and research quizzes that you have. So it can be a lot, and I'm letting you know that up front because I don't want you to feel taken off guard by that. You may feel overwhelmed over the summer. That's totally understandable because especially if you're working, this class is going to feel a bit like a part-time job. And I'm not saying that because I'm trying to be punishing. I'm trying to give you an expectation, because here's the thing. In all of my online classes, my goal is for you to have a very similar experience to what you would have in the classroom. So I have video lectures for everything. So I'm not going to just make you go out and read the textbook and then take quizzes on it. My hope is that you're going to experience this much like you would if you were taking this class in person. But because we're doing this over the summer, then that means that we're doing it a lot of work in a really fast time frame. And for the sake of time, I'm skipping forward a little bit. I think of our relationship as not adversarial. In other words, I don't want to think about this as a me versus you, where like I'm giving you assignments and then crossing my arms and I'm like, impress me with this. No, like I want you to do well on this exam. I want you to do well in this class. I would love it if every single person came out with an A+ or an A in this class. And I want to try to give you all the tools that I can so that you can do that. I want to try to give you all the study tips and tricks that I know that helped me whenever I took this class. I know the things that didn't work because I bombed my first exam in sensation perception. So I'm going to try to give you the strategies and the examples that helped me so that you can do really, really well and ace this material and know it well and master it. Yeah. But thinking about this like a sports metaphor, you can think about it like I'm the coach of the class and you are the team, and we have to go out and conquer the textbook, essentially. And so I can't go out on the field for you because I am too old to be an athlete now. But you're not, and you're a student, and you can go out on the field and you can run those plays from the playbook that I will try to give you. All right, so yeah, because think about if Bill Belichick from the Patriots, think about if he got out on the field, it'd be a disaster. All right, office hours. The long and short of it is, if you need to get in contact with me, email is the best way to go. But you can still reach me. If you call my office phone, I may not be there because it's the summer, but if you leave a voicemail, I do get that voicemail through email. If you send a Play-Doh course message, it might take me more than 24 hours to respond to it because I don't get notifications of that. So email is the best way to go. I know over the summer people are super, super busy, and I know these office hours don't work for everybody. So if you want to meet, just let me know the time and the place, how you want to do it. If you want to Zoom or whatever, that's totally fine. Here's a map for anybody who wanted to try to find me in my office. Quick grading breakdown. Here is the pie, where essentially we're going to have 50% of the class is exams, and then 25% of the class are quizzes. Let's talk about what each of those are. And actually, I actually have a typo here. I'm changing this up this semester so that you'll have about 22 multiple choice and about 5 short answer for these. So you're going to have 4 exams, and those exams are going to cover pretty much everything. So everything is fair game for the exam. You have 22 multiple choice, 5 short answer, and yeah. I try to make it pretty straightforward and predictable about what will be on the exam. It's meant to be challenging. And yes, it is open source. So if you want to use the textbook, if you want to look at the lecture slides, if you want to skim through the lecture videos, that's totally okay. I have designed these questions with that in mind. But keep in mind that a lot of people, if you try to do that for every single question, you absolutely will run out of time. The final exam is not going to be cumulative. It's just going to be over the last 4 chapters. Everything is going to be due Sunday before midnight. So the quizzes and the discussions, those are posted, and when they are due at the end of the week, it's always before midnight. So that way you can get into this pattern, you can get into this rhythm when you know when things are due. And so, like some of you, if your schedule is best where you work best on Mondays, then you can get the stuff done early in the week. Or if you're like me and you're a little bit of a procrastinator, then you can take care of it at the end of the week. Either way is fine. But my hope is that you're going to read the textbook before you take the quizzes, before you watch the video. And the reason for that is because if you are doing that, then you can find the areas that this was challenging. Fechner's law, that was a challenging concept, and so that way you know to pay special attention on the video for that, and that way you can ask questions before you take the quiz if you're confused or uncertain about anything. So the 12 multiple choice questions, they're based from the textbook, and I give you a full hour to do it. It doesn't take people a full hour to do it. Most people get through this pretty quickly. But again, it's meant to kind of keep you up to speed with reading, so that way you're not waiting for the very, very last minute to take the quizzes and the exams all at once. My hope is that as you finish chapter 2, for example, you'll take it before you start chapter 3. The chapter activities that are on Play-Doh, they're kind of open-ended questions or these kind of perceptual cognitive tests or self-report things. I'm trying to get you kind of involved and hands-on in this stuff. I know that is not easy with this being an online class, so the goal of these chapter activities are to try to kind of get you out of the textbook and into the real world with these things. You probably know what to expect in terms of grading for those things, so I'm looking for a post, but also a response to a classmate for all of these. I know that whenever you're responding to a classmate, for some of you, you just want to do haha, Eric, that sounds great, or whatever, or Yes, Kyle, I agree. That makes sense. I'm looking for a little bit more meaningful connection here because I don't want you to do this just because you have to. That's not a good use of anybody's time, really. So if you can try to make a substantive post, substantive reply, we all get the most out of this. You do, the person replying to you do, you making the reply does, and me grading these things and leaving feedback do as well. I did put a rubric here about what makes a good discussion, but it's probably pretty self-explanatory. But you can find that on Plato. The research quizzes, I used to have a final written project for this class, but I phased that out because people hated it, and instead, as part of the basic process courses of your psych degree, I have to have some kind of scientific literacy component to this. I have to get you involved in the primary source research, and so that's what the research quizzes are for. They're meant to get you kind of into reading scientific literature and thinking critically about what you're reading here, because you're absolutely going to be doing that stuff as a counselor, as a therapist, looking up and reading about the new trends in psychology and how to best treat your clients. So it's a great skill to kind of work on. And so for each exam, there's going to be kind of a corresponding research article for you to take on and to read and to digest and to take an exam, take a quiz on. Those are going to be due along with every exam. And so the first one I'm going to open up early, but it's not going to be due until next week when the first exam is due. It's going to be a mix of short answer and multiple choice. All right. Other details, if you have any kind of accommodations through the Blanco Center, just let me know. I'm super happy to work with you on those things. The makeup policy here is that if you are a day late, no big deal. It's just 10% off. That does accumulate very quickly, though. So if you turn in something a day late, it's not a huge deal. If you turn in something 5 days late, that can be a big deal. If you turn in something 2 weeks late, that's a bad deal because that's 140% off, which is a 0. So let me know if there's an emergency. I'm happy to work with you in those cases. I just need to know how I can help you. In the age of AI and plagiarism, just be careful. Cite your sources when in doubt. If you use AI to kind of give an example, to try to formulate your response, that's fine as long as you let me know. What I want for you in this class is for you to be comfortable with this material, that you can process it and that you can understand it and you can interpret it and you can relate it to someone else. Imagine that you are a client sitting on the couch with your therapist, and you tell your therapist something really important, and you look over at your therapist and they're using ChatGPT to look up how to respond to you. You'd be furious, right? You'd want your money back, right? So if that's how you plan on learning, is that how you plan on being a therapist? I really, really hope not, because that's really embarrassing for Westfield State University if you are going to be a ChatGPT therapist. So break out of that habit of doing that. It's totally okay if you want to use it to try to see what's out there and to kind of get a broad understanding. But I'm telling you that ChatGPT does not do well with really specific high area concepts like sensation perception. So be sure to compare what you get there with other sources. And just don't copy and paste. Just let me know whenever you are citing other sources. Scientists do that, right? So it is okay if you do too. All right. So that's it. The last thing I want to show you is Plato. Here is Plato, and I'm sorry this video has gone on so long, but what you see here, basically, chapter 1, you got the quiz, you got the discussion, and you got the video that accompany the first slides. That's pretty much how it goes. And as you can see, as our first assignment, essentially is an icebreaker. You'll say what your name is, what you want to learn about, and I'm going to have you find a perceptual illusion that you can share with the class. All right, thank you so much for tuning in. I apologize this went a little bit long. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions, and I will see you on Plato. Bye-bye.